morning, and welcome to Wednesdays with Darren and Cindy, where we bring you real conversation about things that affect our lives and the community. My name is Cindy Ward,
And my name is Darren Powell.
and we are going to be your host for our podcast.
Creating a federal resume that brings qualifications to life and shows that you are a perfect fit for the job can be a challenge.
That's so true, Mr. Darren. On today's podcast, Brad Morgan, the ACS employment specialist, is going to share tips on developing a federal resume. Brad, first of all, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. My name is Brad Morgan. I work here at ACS Army Community Center. I've been in Japan for about 14 years, and I'm in charge of employment here, so we can help you do job searching, resume writing, and other employment opportunities, maybe off base. And then I also do the Army emergency relief for the soldiers and personal finances.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, hitting on this resume topic that we have today. Resumes are generally put in like three formats, right? So one of them is chronological, the other one is functional, and then it's a combination of both. All right. Which format do you think works best with federal resume writing?
Well, Cindy, that's a really good question. I think all three could work, but ideally, I'd like to go with a combination of both. That could highlight the skills you have that are relevant to the job you're applying for, as well as provide your current chronological work history. This kind of resume also helps you highlights what makes you fit for the best job.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
Okay, yeah, this is something I did recently, so it was a little different. And could you explain to our listeners some of the biggest differences from a resume in the private sector and in a federal resume?
Another good question, Darren. I see I'm going to have my work cut out for me today at this podcast. Well, again, yeah, that's a really good question because I had the same kind of issues. The biggest thing is that the federal resume is much longer usually. I would say, there's no in length, but I would say no more than 5 to 7 pages versus a civilian resume or in the personal workforce, it's about 1 to 2 pages at max. And I think the biggest example would be is, let's say if you were a nurse at a hospital, you would put that down and just kind of basically a few highlights of what you did in the civilian world on a civilian resume. On a federal resume, though, you really want to get into the details and really be detailed about what you did in that position. What computer programs did you use and things like that.
Wow. You're teaching me something, here too. And that's just 2 questions in. And that's amazing. What are some of the biggest mistakes that people make on their federal resumes? And this one I'm really tuning into because I want to make sure I didn't make any of those mistakes.
That's another good question. I think not getting into enough detail at your positions and quantify it. What did you actually do? What did you change when you were in that position? For example, I was in a certain position for 3 years. During those 3 years, I had these number of projects, and I reduced either waste or expenses by a certain percentage or something like that. You don't have to be a total number person, but it gives me an idea when I'm looking at that resume or the employer, what you've accomplished, and it shows results.
That's awesome. So you're talking about that STAR statement.
Yes.
This next question,
Awesome.
Brad, is it kind of follows what you've already been doing, but is there any just generalized tips that you would give to somebody writing a federal resume?
Yeah, Darren, I think the big thing is both for civilian and federal resume is have a master resume. And, throughout your career, always add to it. And then just don't send one typical resume to each position. Tailor-made that resume from your master resume to what really pertains to that position that you're applying for. I think that's really my biggest thing that I would recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
And it might take a lot of time, right? To do those different resumes and tailoring different things, and it's so funny because before I take a position, I do have a master resume, but before I take a position, I always go back and I tailor it to whatever the job position is asking for on USA Jobs. So therefore, my resume is more towards that job. For those who are listening, it is going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, some work to put into it. But if you really do want that job, you'll go ahead and you'll take those steps to do what you have to do in order to tailor your resume. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. I would just say, like, you might love the position you're in, even if you have a job right now, but maybe at the end of the year, over the holidays, just kind of put in that master resume what you did throughout the year. And it would make it a lot easier if you do ever were decide to go to a different position, you already have that in there, and it reduces a lot of the work in the future.
I think that's a good point, and I think that's one of the things that I think Brad and Mel taught me in the past is that every Friday at the end of my day, I take about 5 minutes, and it really doesn't take a lot of time if I do it on a consistent basis, but it's just part of my routine to try to add, what did I do this week? What did I do that was impactful? And type of things like that. And so when that document, when I can get to the point where I may need it as a resume master, it's a lot easier to kind of pull those bullets out of there and put them in there and make them fit a little bit better. So that's really good.
And you bring up a good point, Darren, because not only does that help on a resume, that helps if you are already working, and that's eval time. You can go ahead and take those bullets, from what you just said, taking time out on a Friday just to write those down. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, Brad, so I do want to ask you, do you have any resources where people can get examples of what a good resume looks like?
Yes, we have examples here at ACS. I can email them to you, or you can stop in and we can go over them. We have a couple different ones for different positions, like in maybe a social service field or some other field. And there's also, you can also go on Military One Source. We have a spouse's initiation that we can give you the information on down here too. So we have a lot of great resources here for employment.
Awesome. So isn't there a class, a federal resume writing class that you offer, or do you not do that anymore?
No, we do offer it. I don't have the date on me that we do offer it. It's usually once a month that we will offer it. But even if you can't come in at that time, just stop by at ACS, see what other services we have. And if I'm available, I'll be happy to meet with you. We also have Steve Morey, who does resumes too, who can meet with you. So usually one of us is available for you, even if you just stop by or just call down and we can make an appointment.
Awesome. And those classes are listed on our Facebook page at ACS Facebook page, as well as you can find them in the Bugle. So if you look in the Bugle, you'll be able to find those resume writing classes as well.
Okay, good. Well, in summary, and this may not be the last question, but is there anything else that you would like to share that might help people in their pursuit of just federal employment in general outside of the resume?
Yeah, Darren, I would say that the biggest thing is just don't get discouraged. It can be a challenge trying to find a position, a federal position being overseas. But if you don't get accepted for some reason, find out what it was that what disqualified you. And then we can try to change, try to maybe fix that in your resume. Maybe you forgot to put something in there. And, just keep trying and look at each one as a learning experience.
That's really good advice.
And just a caveat to that, is there any suggestions? I know this one's kind of off the cuff, but of how someone that may not have the experience could obtain the experience to maybe get in a position where after they found out that information?
Yeah, well, we have a really great volunteer coordinator here, Miss Cindy Ward, and there are great volunteer services here, helping the community out, and you also get experience. So if you have no experience, or you're just graduating from high school, whatever it is, come down and volunteer. And you can maybe just to learn a lot of different things volunteering. I hear numerous times of people who volunteer doing something and then they get a full-time position later on in that field.
You're right. I've heard of that as well too.
Yeah, and I think a big important, if I would add to that, it would be the building the relationships, and the networking is super huge as well. Because a lot of times it's like if people kind of know your face and they're familiar with you. I know the volunteers that we've had here, they've all kind of went on to do different things. And a lot of times it was those relationships that were built, and just people seeing your work ethic, knowing your face, and just getting the exposure. Sometimes people are walking through the door that, they may build a relationship with that could help in that pursuit of, getting a position moving forward.
You're right. And I just want to go ahead and stress what Mr. Brad just said. Do not get discouraged. It's hard, especially if you're writing a resume for the first time. Those who are getting out of the military, if you are ETSing and you're doing the TAP program, transition assistance, it can be very strenuous. It can be very difficult. However, we are here to help. ACS is a great resource for you to go to. Brad Morgan is here, and he'll be able to help you out. He will not write your resume for you. However, he can really steer you in the right direction. You have any other thing you want to add?
We want to give Steve a shout out too, because Steve is great as well, and they're a great team, and they work well together, and they kind of feed off each other. I think they're both good resources. They're both very familiar with the system, and they're very familiar with Japan. So a lot of times it's some things outside of this world. They're both excellent in doing what they do, and they're awesome, good team.
Awesome.
And not just federal positions. We have, teaching English. We can give you ideas there about teaching English off base. You can meet a lot of Japanese, introduce yourself to the culture. There's other job opportunities too. We have a modeling agencies. A lot of times they like people to model, and I think you'd be very interested in that. And then lastly, I just want to say thank you for inviting me on this podcast. It's become quite popular here at Camp Zama. I call you all the Joe Rogan of Camp Zama, so I feel very lucky to be on here. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, and thank you for listening to 100% Real Life Topics here on Wednesdays with Darren and Cindy, and we will see you all next week.